Okay, what I've just done is attached your exam preview. You will be tested next week on Tuesday, so I'm giving you a full 7 days to recover or prepare for recover. I use the term recover because there's been a ton of you guys that have been away because of either illnesses or other kinds of activities, dance, all those other kinds of things that kind of got in there. So that would now all of a sudden make your understanding probably a little choppy. So you have your week to work through this activity and to try to catch up with some of the ideas that are there. Does that kind of make sense to you? Now, I've got it obviously in a digital copy. How many of you guys like to have a paper copy? Okay, so I'll print off a class set of paper copies. I'll make some adjustments so you have space to answer the questions. Okay, the one thing I want you guys to be aware of is it's on Tuesday, May 8th. There's 8 true-false questions, 12 multiple choice, and a 10-mark paragraph response. Who were the loyalists? Who were the loyalists loyal to? Like some of these basic questions that you're looking for. Now, when we take a look at the paragraph, you can have your paragraph basically done, and you can attach it if you so choose. Okay, I'm giving you the opportunity. I want a quality paragraph. Does that make sense to you? Is it possible for you guys to go in there and write a quality paragraph off the top of your head? Absolutely it is, as long as you have a basic plan here. So what were the effects of the emergence of the United States on the development of Canada? So what are the 2 key events that we saw in chapter 6? What we saw was the American Revolution. And the War of 1812. So basically, we can break it down into these questions. So if I'm looking at an idea, is the emergence of the United States, or I could go the other way. The American Revolution and the War of 1812 had a significant impact on the development of Canada. Okay. Now I know that I need to talk about both of those. What was the impact? Okay, so I would probably need an example, one example from the American Revolution. I should be looking at one example from the War of 1812. That'll start to cover your content. Okay, is there enough? Now the question is what did they shape? How did they shape things? So what were the things that were tied to the American Revolution? Well, one of the things that we had is we had the Loyalist migration. Okay, so if I say this is the event, okay, so the development of Canada was affected by the American Revolution. Because of the American Revolution, Canada experienced the United Empire Loyalist migration. Okay, so now you've stated an effect. You haven't told me how that's affected our development. Well, what was the Loyalist migration? Basically, it brought British to Canada. Okay, what resulted from the British coming to Canada? 1791. Constitutional Act was created. Now, what effect would the Constitutional Act have on Canada? representative democracy. Formation of provinces. All right, some of the things that kind of came out of it. Own rights are protected. Okay, so we got a couple of things that resulted out of that. This is not new. This is information you guys already have, but now's the time to remember it when you're going to write. So when we're looking at it, okay, this led to the direct result of the Loyalist migration. The Loyalist migration led to a British identity, which led to the creation of the Constitutional Act, which led to this. Ergo, or this leads to this. Does that make sense to you? So somewhere along your paragraph, you have to get from here to here to here. Can you do that in one sentence? Possibly, maybe two. But basically, you're probably going to tell me the American Revolution led to the United Empire Loyalists migration. Okay, that's the event. Then you have to explain to me how it led to the development of Canada. So one is kind of laying down the reason. The other one is showing me the connection. Get what I'm saying? You guys are looking stunned at me. It's just a case of working words together. Okay, now we take a look at the War of 1812. What resulted from the War of 1812? Okay, we got another reinforcement of British identity. In the aftermath of it, we see Canada's assimilation policies. Okay, now keep in mind, that was part of our identity for a long time. It's not a part that we're overly proud of, but the War of 1812, because the British viewed that they won it, they got peace with the United States at the end of it, were allowed to try to stamp that British identity throughout Canada at that point in time. Okay, the group that obviously paid the price for that became First Nations at some point, right? Okay, not only did we get that, we also got Canada's borders. And basically, you have the good, you have the bad on that one chart that you guys are supposed to fill in. There was the example that we talked about just the other day on Friday as far as what was a positive effect of Canada's identity and even some of the negative effects for Canada's identity. And you just tie into that. So as long as you can show me something that came out of the American Revolution, as long as you show me something that came out of the War of 1812, okay, ultimately you'll have the content you need to finish off that paragraph. Beyond that, I'm looking for title. A lot of you guys will lose that grade right off the top because you refused to put a title on your paragraph. Okay, I'm looking for topic sentences. Okay, because this is the way a paragraph's supposed to look. It should be indented. I'm looking for transitions. Do you know when you're giving me an example? Do you know when you're giving me an explanation? You have transitions that can help you with that, like transitional devices and stuff like that, or transitional phrasing. In addition to that, we're looking for a closing statement. And then beyond that, is it readable? Do the sentences make sense? Now, if you're going to do it at home, you have read and write. Now, you can go to your parents, but I mean, it almost made me kill my mom when I gave my paper to my mom to read, because she'd take a red pen to it and she'd slash and dice and burn that thing, and then I'd end up having to write that paper twice, sometimes 3 times. So if I thought it was going to be 45 minutes, ended up taking me half a day on a Saturday. I wasn't happy. Okay? With read and write, if you're listening to the paragraph, after you've typed it, if it sounds wrong, it is wrong. Does that make sense to you? When we read information, we add the prepositions and stuff that we intended to have in the first place, even though it's not on that piece of paper. We have a tendency to fill in from our own mind the way it's supposed to sound. Listening to it through read and write will let you know what it actually sounds like. Oh, I forgot this and forgot that. It can save you an awful lot of grief. Now, granted, everything I had to do back when I was in elementary required us to write it by hand. Had to be in handwriting, had to be double spaced, and if you screwed up, you had to do it all over again. Today, it's nice because you can just delete the sentence that caused you grief and you can maintain the rest of your document. Technology, you're welcome. Okay. So that's basically what we're looking at. So you have some time to go through your notes, go through those sections to see what was really developing at this point. Okay? So with that said, what I would do right now if I was you is make sure, if you've been away, that you go over the keys that you've missed to this point. Figure out if you have questions that you need to ask me. In addition to that, just give me a second. Remember, you guys are supposed to be maintaining your summaries. There's also an analysis here, so we don't want to forget that. Kind of talking about constitutional act and stuff. We had a timeline that we were continuing, or at least you should have been continuing it. Takes us up to the War of 1812 by now. You had your summaries that hopefully you've maintained. So if you've been away for a while, you don't really need to read the chapter 5 stuff anymore, though you will have a unit test at some point to go back to. You may want to start going over your chapter 6 stuff to see what's in there. Now, if you've made a copy of this like you were supposed to and added things where you were supposed to and stuff like that, you might want to go there with the highlighter now and start taking a look at the things for that one paragraph question so you know the information you want to put into it. Okay, with that said, give me a couple of minutes. I will adjust the outline here. And I will start giving you some space. The true false questions are the first 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll get you started with your CMP one yet. Huh? Did I get you started with your CMP?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Kozak?
He's out for a minute.
Okay, I need Sage Key to the office, please. She's leaving.
What the hell? Leaving? Has it
Okay, paper copies were for who? You too. Okay. On paper, or are you doing it digital? There you go. Alex, more paper copy or just digital?
Nah. I'll take paper.
There you go.
Oh, this is what we were supposed to be doing. I understand this. I thought we had to do this. I just found that.
Okay,
This has
so
like
when you're reading through some of
Alcatraz.
these questions,
Must be like grade 8.
who are the loyalists loyal to? Take a look at what it is. It's true, false. So I'm going to put in some kind of knowledge there. The likelihood is it's either going to be the British, possibly the French, the Americans, right? Like I'm going to be giving you something in there. You need to recognize who they were loyal to. Okay? So that's kind of should be a no-brainer for you. Who were the Patriots and what did they fight for? Okay, now the Patriots were the ones that were fighting against the United Empire Loyalists, or the Tories at that point in time. They were fighting for American independence. Okay, they were the ones that were fighting, they were basically the Americans fighting against the British. Who was likely to be tarred and feathered? That goes back a while. We talked about it briefly there. Do you remember what the tar and feathering was? Okay, they were in the 13 colonies. These were the ones that were loyal to England. They'd show up, they'd take a ball of tar, they put a feather on it, and they would put it on a person's kind of stoop or whatever the case is, which basically means when it gets dark, they're coming for you. So people would pack up their stuff and they would leave. Okay, but these are the people that were supporters, like who would be tarred and feathered, those people that were supporters of the British. So they may be referred to as United Empire Loyalists, they may be referred to as Tories, okay, at that point in time. So those were the two groups that were there. I just gave you the two groups. You guys have a pen or a pencil on that sheet of paper. You should be putting it down. Just got half of it for you with the help of Ms. Perisky there. Okay, but yeah, no, again, if they caught you, they pour tar on you, they roll you around in feathers, and then they drag you through the streets. Now, when they say they're pouring tar on you, that means tar has to be in a liquid form. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's at the highest temperature it could conceivably be at, but it also doesn't mean it wasn't. If it was at the highest temperature it could be at, they're basically pouring boiling tar on your body and then rolling you around in feathers. The shock doesn't get you. The possible peeling of the tar off your body as it takes out huge chunks of human skin would likely lead to infection and death. If you got it at the tail end when it wasn't so hot but still in a liquid form, it would just be very sticky and very nasty to take off. There's historical records of both, right? I think the vast majority of it was the embarrassment of it, but ultimately to send you away from the 13 colonies. A lot of people would do this in the end to get the assets of people that were supporting the British. So if you flee, whatever money you have, whatever land you have, you've lost all of that. For those people that were loyal to the Patriots and stuff like that, they were able to pick up that land and stuff. What I hear in my mind is just the screams of them trying to pull off the car, right? Like it's just. Okay, what kinds of hardships did the Loyalists face when moving to Nova Scotia? So you have a whole list of ideas of what they were facing. Go through your notes about what effect did the American War of Independence, American Revolution have on the Haudenosaunee Confederacy? Remember, we talked about the 4 groups beyond just the British, or 3 groups just beyond the British. There was that one handout there. They did talk about Joseph Brant, or Kayan and Naya, I think, off the top of my brain, which is probably wrong. Okay, so what side Joseph Brant support allies in the American Revolution? What effect did the Loyalist migration to Quebec have on the Canadians and First Nations? The War of 1812 triggered by in response to what European war? What war was going on besides the War of 1812 that we saw again and again? Starts with an N. The last one there. War of 1812 started or was triggered by or in response to what European war? What was the big war going on in Europe at the time? Napoleonic Wars. Yeah. Napoleonic. Okay. You're entitled, I guess. So all kinds of other words you could have liked, but Napoleonic is the one that you really enjoyed. That's quite fun. Yeah. Expeditiously. So hurry up. All right. War against British rule, American Revolution was the result of. So what were the causes of that war? Think in terms of the American perspective. Why did the Americans go to war? What were they trying to get?
Respect.
Okay, they're fighting for respect. Okay, and how do they feel that they were disrespected? There were some specific examples of that. You had them having soldiers or Navy, like officers taken off of boats and stuff like that. They had their trade lost by the British, so they pulled in France at the time period and stuff like that. So those were kind of the things that really got it going. What groups made up the United Empire Loyalists? Okay, now we're in multiple choice. What groups made up the United Empire Loyalists? Again, back to that one handout where we have 4 specific ones, multiple choice, specific ones. If you don't get the name of that group out of the 4 that are there, chances are that's the wrong answer. What Loyalist group was offered freedom and a farm? Okay, so that would be the ones. After the American Revolution, the Haudenosaunee settled around which river? So they have an actual name that's in there. So we don't have it specifically within the assignment. You know which one is talking about First Nations in the assignments, like the Joseph Brant era. The name of the river is probably very